Lupu on Van Fong KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the quiet town of Eldermeyer. Nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, Eldermeyer was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, and secrets were as rare as strangers. 17-year-old Clara Bennett stood at the edge of the old cemetery, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a faded photograph. The image depicted a smiling couple, her parents on their wedding day. They had vanished without a trace when she was just a child, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a heart full of longing. Raised by her grandmother Agnes, Clara had grown up hearing tales of the supernatural, of spirits that lingered and shadows that whispered secrets. Agnes often spoke of the veil, a thin barrier between the living and the dead, and how some, like Clara, were sensitive to its presence. That evening, as the wind rustled the leaves and the first stars appeared, Clara felt a familiar chill run down her spine. The air grew thick, and the world seemed to hold its breath. From the corner of her eye she saw a flicker, a shadow darting between the tombstones. To cut a short story short, "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Silence. Then, a whisper barely audible. "Clara." She turned sharply, scanning the darkness. The photograph slipped from her fingers, landing softly on the grass. As she bent to retrieve it, a cold hand grasped her shoulder. Gasping, Clara spun around, only to find herself face to face with a translucent figure, a woman with kind eyes and a sorrowful smile. "Mom," Clara whispered, tears welling up. The apparition nodded slowly. "Why now? After all these years?" Her mother's spirit raised a finger to her lips, then pointed toward the forest beyond the cemetery. "Answers lie beyond the trees," she murmured, her voice echoing as she faded into the night. Determined, Clara pocketed the photograph and stepped into the forest, unaware that her journey into the unknown had just begun. The forest swallowed Clara whole. Trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their gnarled branches clawing at the moonlight. The air was heavy with damp moss and the scent of earth, and every step she took seemed to echo far too loudly. She didn't know where she was going, only that something deep inside her urged her forward. Her mother's voice still echoed in her ears. "Answers lie beyond the trees." Clara's flashlight flickered as if struggling against the energy that pulsed through the forest. The deeper she went, the stranger things became. The wind didn't blow here, yet the leaves rustled. Shadows moved even when she stood still. A hollow feeling grew in her chest, part fear, part something else, something awakening. Then suddenly everything stopped. No sound, no movement. Clara stood in a clearing where the moon bathed the forest floor in silver light. In the center of the clearing was a stone circle, old and weathered, covered in ivy. Symbols were etched into the stone, glowing faintly with a blue hue. She approached cautiously, reaching out to touch one of the symbols. As her fingers made contact, the symbol flared to life. A low hum vibrated through her bones. "Clara Bennett," said a voice, calm, ancient, and eerily familiar. She spun around. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a boy, maybe a year or two older than her. Tall, with dark hair that brushed over his eyes and a worn leather satchel slung over his shoulder. His presence didn't feel threatening, more like a warning. "Who are you?" Clara asked, instinctively stepping back. "I'm Elias," he said. "And I've been waiting for you." She narrowed her eyes. "How do you know my name?" Elias stepped closer, carefully avoiding the glowing stones. "Because your name is in the prophecy. Because you're the reason the veil is thinning." Clara blinked. "Prophecy? Veil?" Lupu on Van Fong KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. Elias nodded, eyes serious. "The barrier between the living and the dead, the veil, it's growing weaker. Spirits are leaking through. Some mean no harm, but others are drawn to pain, to anger, to loss." Clara's mind raced. "My mom. I saw her. She told me to come here. Then she's still trying to protect you, Elias said quietly. But if she appeared, it means the time is close. Something is stirring, and you're at the center of it. Clara shook her head. This is insane. I don't even know you. I know, Elias replied. But I know you. Your parents, before they disappeared, they were part of the order. What order? The Lumen, he said. A secret group of people who can see through the veil. Your mother and father were among the strongest. But they were betrayed. By someone close to them. Someone who wanted to use the veil to open the gate. What gate? The one that should never be opened, Elias said, voice grave. It leads to the hollow realm, where lost souls and darker things reside. Clara felt like her world was tilting. Why me? Because you have the sight. And because whatever your parents started, someone wants to finish. As if on cue, the sky above them rippled. The moon dimmed, and a cold wind howled through the trees. The glowing symbols on the stones flared brighter, then cracked with a thunderous snap. They found us, Elias muttered. Who? He didn't answer. Instead he grabbed her hand. Run! They dashed through the forest, Clara barely able to keep up. Behind them shadows chased, slithering shapes with hollow eyes and screeching whispers. The trees seemed to lean in, trying to protect them, but the darkness kept coming. After what felt like forever, Elias yanked her into a hollow tree trunk. Shua! He breathed, pressing a finger to his lips. The creatures passed, their shrieks dying out in the distance. Clara collapsed against the tree wall, gasping. What are those things? Wraiths, Elias said. Born from rage and regret. They serve the hollow. She stared at him. You expect me to believe all of this? That I'm some chosen girl and my parents were ghost warriors or something? Elias didn't smile. I expect you to believe what you've seen. And what you felt. That chill in your bones? That was the veil. You felt it your whole life. You've just never had a name for it. Clara's hands trembled. So what now? We find the gate, he said. And we close it. Before whoever opened it tears the world apart. Who's trying to open it? Elias hesitated. We don't know. Only that they call themselves the Hollowborn. And they want to bring the dead back. At any cost. Clara's eyes widened. Bring them back? Like my parents. He looked at her, sympathy in his voice. Not like you remember them. For a moment silence fell between them. The forest had stilled again, but the danger hadn't passed. Clara felt it in her gut. This was only the beginning. She stood brushing dirt from her jeans. Okay, I'm in. But I want the truth. All of it. Elias nodded. Then we start where your parents left off. There's a map hidden in the old library. It'll lead us to the gate. Clara stared into the darkness ahead, her jaw set. Let's go. As they disappeared into the trees once more, the shadows behind them stirred. Watching. Waiting. The Whitmore estate hadn't changed much in 6 years. The stone fountain still gurgled in the front garden like a smug reminder of their wealth, and the same iron gates stood like sentinels guarding their pristine lives. But today those gates opened for someone they had long erased from memory. Run Holloway. Run stepped out of the black town car, dressed in a tailored slate gray suit, sharp heels tapping against the cobblestone driveway. Her hair was longer now, swept back into a sleek ponytail. Her expression was unreadable, the kind of stillness that unsettled anyone who dared look too long. Lupu on Van Fong, KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. Inside the house, silence fell as her presence soaked through the air like a cold fog. Melissa Whitmore, elegant as ever in her white cashmere, froze mid-sip of her tea. Across from her, Thomas's hand clenched his whiskey glass. Neither had been warned of Wren's arrival. No grand announcement. No invitation. Just the opening of the door and the echo of her heels. Hello, Mother, Ren said flatly. Melissa recovered first, placing her cup down with poised grace. You shouldn't be here, Ren. I own 15% of this house now. Technically, I should be here more often, Ren replied, brushing imaginary dust off her sleeve. Dad left that in the will. You remember, right? Thomas scoffed. We thought you sold your shares. Ren's gaze snapped to him sharp and cold. That's what you wanted, isn't it? For me to disappear. Again. The room held its breath. Melissa stood, smoothing her blouse. Why now? Ren smiled faintly. Because I've been watching, and now is the perfect time. The next morning the office buzzed with unease. Ren's reappearance had traveled faster than wildfire. Ava nearly spilled her coffee when she saw Ren enter the building as if she had never left, flashing an executive access badge no one even knew she had. Morning, Ava, Ren said casually. Still watching my seat for me? Ava stiffened. You don't have a seat anymore. Ren tilted her head. You sure about that? Because the board thinks otherwise. Ren walked straight to the top floor, past stunned assistants and frozen managers. Her heels clicked in defiance as she pushed open the door labeled Vice President of Strategy, a title that once belonged to her. A title Ava had snatched the second Ren left. But Ren wasn't here to reclaim a title. She was here to dismantle an empire. Inside her old office she found a stack of reports, careless numbers, failed campaigns, shrinking market shares. Evelyn wasn't thriving. It was bleeding, and no one noticed because the rot started at the top. That night, in a high-rise bar with glass walls and jazz music floating overhead, Ren met with an old friend, Eli Park. Once a junior data analyst at Evelyn, now the founder of a booming AI startup. I can't believe you're actually back, Eli said, raising his glass. After what they did. Ren smirked. They thought they buried me. They didn't know I was planting seeds. Eli leaned in. You're planning something. I can see it in your eyes. I need your help, she said. I need access to Evelyn's latest AI prototype, the one they stole from my pitch deck 3 years ago and passed off as Thomas's innovation. Eli blinked. You're talking corporate espionage. No, she replied. I'm talking justice. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I'm in. Over the next few weeks, Ren's presence disrupted everything. Board meetings grew tense. Investors grew nervous. Rumors of a shift in power rippled through the corporate corridors like a rising tide. Ren wasn't loud, but she was strategic, meeting key stakeholders in private, reminding them of her father's vision, subtly leaking performance failures under Ava's watch. Meanwhile, Thomas grew paranoid. His once steady hand shook when reviewing reports. Melissa snapped at the staff more often. And Ava? She tried to maintain her cool. But Ren's ghost haunted her every step. One afternoon, Ren cornered her in the elevator. You've been quiet, Ren said softly. I don't owe you anything, Ava shot back. You took everything from me, Ren said, stepping closer. But I'm not here to take it back. I'm here to show everyone who you really are. As the elevator doors opened, Ava stepped out, rattled. She didn't realize Ren had just declared war. Back in her penthouse, Ren stared at the city lights. She wasn't the girl who begged for her family's love anymore. She didn't need their validation. What she wanted now was the truth exposed. The lies, the betrayals, the secrets buried under polished smiles and quarterly bonuses. Lupu on Van Fong, KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. She had spent 6 years building her arsenal, connections, credibility, and a network of allies who knew exactly who the Whitmores were behind closed doors. And now, one by one, their dominoes would fall. She picked up her phone and dialed Eli. Phase 1 is complete. It's time for the next move. What's that? He asked. Ren's voice was like ice. Burn their legacy to the ground. Started with a leak. An anonymous report surfaced on a popular business news blog. outlining irregularities in Evelyn Dynamics' recent AI prototype. Industry leaders began questioning whether the technology was truly proprietary. The article didn't name names, but it didn't need to. Anyone who had been following Evelyn's meteoric rise knew the mastermind was supposedly Thomas Whitmore. Wren read the piece with a calm smile as she sipped her coffee on the balcony of her penthouse. The city below buzzed, unaware that a corporate reckoning had just begun. She glanced at her phone. Dozens of missed calls from board members, journalists, even Melissa. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she texted Eli 2 words. Perfect timing. At Evelyn HQ, chaos had set in. Thomas stormed through the executive wing, his usually composed face red with fury. Who leaked it? He barked, slamming his office door behind him. I want legal on the phone. Now. Ava followed close behind, her heels clicking like warning shots. You need to calm down, she hissed. Panicking only makes you look guilty. I'm not guilty, he roared. It's her. Wren. She's behind this. Ava narrowed her eyes. We don't have proof. Thomas gritted his teeth. We will. I want her watched. Every move. Every call. If she so much as sneezes near a reporter, I want to know. But it was already too late. Wren had moved past whispers. She was working in broad daylight now. The next board meeting was brutal. Wren sat at the far end of the glass table, calm and sharp in a navy suit. Across from her, Melissa looked like she hadn't slept in days. Thomas sat rigidly, lips pressed into a hard line. Ava, ever the mask, smiled like nothing was wrong. Let's begin, Melissa said, voice brittle. Wren leaned forward. I'd like to start. The board members exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Wren placed a thick file on the table and slid it forward. This is a full audit of the AI division's last 2 years. Outsourced by a third-party agency. Inside, you'll find discrepancies between reported R&D costs and actual expenditures. You'll also see duplicated code lines from a 2020 pitch I submitted before I was removed from the team. The room went quiet. One of the senior board members, a silver-haired man named Caldwell, flipped through the file, his eyes growing wider with every page. Are you saying the foundation of our latest product is stolen? He asked, voice low. Wren's voice was calm and icy. I'm saying it was mine, and they took it without credit, compensation, or legal transfer. Melissa stood. This is nonsense. We've always operated above board. Wren turned to her. You mean like when you altered the shareholder distribution after Dad's death? Or when you manipulated the board to block my voting rights while I was overseas? Gasps echoed around the table. You can't prove that, Melissa snapped. Wren smiled. Can't I? She tapped her tablet, and a projector screen behind her came to life. Emails, signed documents, even voice recordings. Evidence she had spent years gathering. Evidence of fraud, theft, and lies stitched neatly into timelines no one could deny. The room imploded. Board members demanded explanations. Voices rose. Melissa tried to defend herself. Thomas blamed the legal team. Ava stared in stunned silence. Wren sat back, letting them tear each other apart. This was only the beginning. Later that day, Ava cornered Wren in the executive elevator. You're playing a dangerous game, she said, her voice low. Wren didn't flinch. I'm not playing, Ava. I'm correcting. You could destroy the entire company, Ava hissed. Lu Puan Van Fong, KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. Good, Wren replied. Maybe then something better can grow in its place. Ava grabbed her arm before the doors opened. You're not the only one with secrets. Wren leaned in, her voice like velvet and fire. Then I suggest you burn yours before I do. As the news spread, Evelyn's stock began to dip. Investors were spooked. Journalists demanded statements. And yet, Wren remained elusive, never giving interviews, never appearing at press conferences. Instead, she went to the place no one expected, the public. Using her personal platform, she released a quiet but devastating post. I was silenced, dismissed, and erased by my own family. Today I reclaim what was mine, not just for revenge, but for every woman who's ever been told her work wasn't good enough unless it had a man's name on it. The post went viral. Former employees came forward, sharing similar stories of being pushed aside for Whitmore favorites. Tech feminists, industry veterans, and even disgruntled investors rallied behind her. A movement began to form, and at the center of it was Ran. Melissa tried to regain control. She called for a vote to remove Ran from the board. It backfired. 3 members abstained, 2 flipped, and suddenly, Ran's seat was more secure than ever. "Don't you get it?" Ran said in that closed-door meeting. "This isn't about one woman. It's about all the damage you've done to keep power. And I'm going to make sure everyone sees it." Melissa's eyes filled with hatred. "You're destroying this family." Ran met her gaze with a stillness that chilled the room. "No. You destroyed this family the moment you chose ego over integrity." By week's end, more dominoes fell. Thomas was suspended pending internal investigation. Melissa's personal accounts were flagged for financial inconsistencies. Ava, realizing the ship was sinking, reached out to Ran with an offer to join forces and stabilize the brand. Ran didn't respond. Instead, she walked into her father's old office, the one Melissa had turned into a showroom for awards and curated legacies. She stood by the window and whispered, "I'm almost done, Dad." And she meant it. The storm didn't end, it evolved. Evelyn's internal investigation became public within days. Shareholders demanded transparency. Regulators circled like vultures, and headlines screamed betrayal. Words like embezzlement, plagiarism, and board corruption flooded the news cycles. Ran didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The truth was doing all the work. She sat calmly in her minimalist office, a new temporary space she'd chosen, outside of Evelyn headquarters. Clean lines. No portraits. No legacy to choke on. Just a glass wall behind her and a clear view of the skyline she once watched as a girl with dreams and no nameplate. Eli knocked and stepped in, holding a small velvet box. It arrived. She opened it gently. Inside was the original prototype chip from Project Halcyon, the AI she designed, the one they stole, repackaged, and profited from. It had been recovered from a locked vault in Evelyn's lower archives by a tech whistleblower who'd once worked under her. She ran her finger over its edge. "They never understood it," she said quietly. "They only saw the money, not the mission." Eli smiled. "You do." Across town, the Whitmore family fractured. Melissa was voted out as interim CEO by an emergency board meeting. Her final moments in the executive wing were caught on camera. Cold, venomous, and alone. She pushed past reporters, shielding her face. Thomas disappeared from the public eye. Rumors swirled about legal deals and offshore accounts. No one confirmed anything. No one defended him. Ava was the last to fall. It happened quietly. An anonymous tip revealed that she'd been the architect of Evelyn's tax evasion strategy for 5 years. Hiding funds, funneling contracts, manipulating audits. The very precision that once impressed investors became her undoing. Ran never had to say a word. Her silence was her scalpel. Lupu on Van Fong, KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. 2 weeks later, Ran was invited to the Evelyn boardroom. Not as a guest, not as a pawn, but as a candidate. "Miss Holloway," Caldwell said, adjusting his glasses. "You've single-handedly salvaged our credibility in one of the worst PR disasters this company has ever faced. You protected the technology. You exposed fraud. You proved. You're the legacy this place deserves." She didn't smile. "I didn't do it to earn a title," Ran said plainly. "I did it because I was tired of watching cowards wear my work like a mask." But you have a choice now, Caldwell continued. The position of CEO is open. The board would like to offer it to you. She looked out the window where the skyline shimmered in the morning light. This was the seat her father once held. The seat stolen from her by blood and lies. She turned back, eyes sharp. I accept. Her first day as CEO was quiet. No ribbon cutting. No press. Just work. She walked through the halls. Many people avoided her eyes, not out of fear but awe. The woman who had once been labeled a non-collaborative engineer was now their leader. Ren changed everything. She dissolved old divisions, rehired employees who had been wrongfully terminated, introduced new ethics protocols, and most importantly, she opened the innovation floor again. Not for profit but for purpose. Project Halcyon was reborn under its original vision. AI for public health systems, smart diagnostics, accessible analysis, human empathy built into code. It was never about revenge. It was always about restoration. Weeks passed. The media called it the Whitmore collapse and the Holloway reclamation. But Ren didn't give interviews. She let the work speak. Then one day, she walked into a familiar building, Whitmore Family Trust Holdings. Not to burn it down but to buy it. The family's assets were in shambles. After Melissa's mismanagement and Thomas's pending litigation, the Whitmore Trust was drowning in debt. Ren, through a proxy firm, acquired 51% of its controlling interest. When the deal closed, she stepped into the boardroom where Melissa, now just a name on paper, sat stunned at the table's end. You bought our family's legacy? Melissa said, nearly choking. No, Ren replied. I bought mine back. Melissa stood. You can't rewrite history. Ren walked toward her, calm and tall. History already forgot me once. This time it will remember. That night, she returned to her father's grave. Not with anger. Not with grief. But with peace. She knelt down, placing a small chip beside the tombstone, Halcyon's heart. I kept my promise, she whispered. I built something they couldn't break. And I did it without becoming them. Wind stirred her hair. Silence hugged her shoulders. You were right, she said. Real power doesn't come from titles or bloodlines. It comes from knowing who you are. Even when the world tries to erase you. She stood, brushed the dirt from her hands and walked away. No ceremony. No applause. Just a quiet step forward. The story of Ren Holloway didn't end with revenge. Began with it. But what she built afterward was power redefined. Not power that conquered. Power that created. And in that creation, she became something the Whitmores could never be. Untouchable. 1 year later. The plaque outside Evelyn's headquarters gleamed in the morning sun. The company had changed, new structure, new leadership, a new name. Halcyon Dynamics. No more Whitmore. No more shadows. Just the future. Born from what had once been stolen and buried. Inside, Ren Holloway stood in the center of the innovation atrium, speaking quietly to a group of young engineers. She wore no blazer. No badge of superiority. Just a black turtleneck, loose slacks, and clarity in her voice. You don't build for applause, she said. You build to solve something no one else dared to face. That's the job. That's the legacy. They listened wide-eyed, curious, inspired. Ren didn't teach code. She taught courage. Lupu An Van Fong KD. May 7, 2025, 4:04 p.m. Because if anyone knew what it meant to be erased, underestimated, and then rise, not with a scream but with strategy, it was her. Outside the company walls, the Whitmore name had become a cautionary tale. Melissa now lived quietly abroad, far from the boardrooms and camera flashes she once lived for. Her assets were frozen, her public image shattered. No one invited her to speak. No one called her a visionary anymore. Thomas remained in legal limbo. Stories of offshore transfers and falsified filings continued to leak, one after the other. There were whispers that he tried to negotiate with Ron, offering apologies, money, even silence. She declined all of it. Closure, she told Eli once, isn't something they give me. It's something I took back the day I stopped caring whether they regretted it. As for Ava, she was the last Whitmore still clinging to the fantasy that her intelligence could buy forgiveness. But intelligence without ethics had a short shelf life. Ren never responded to Ava's messages. Some doors stay closed no matter how many times someone knocks. One rainy afternoon, Ren returned to her childhood neighborhood. Not the glossy new districts of downtown, but the place she was raised, old concrete buildings, faded streetlights, a quiet bookstore that still sold second-hand manuals on engineering and science. The shopkeeper looked up as she walked in. "You're her, aren't you?" the older woman asked. "The girl who used to sit back there for hours with that broken calculator and a dream." Ren smiled genuinely. "I am." The shopkeeper handed her a worn notebook. "You left this in the back corner one day." "Kept it. Figured you'd come back when you were ready." Ren opened it. Pages full of scribbles, sketches of early halcyon prototypes, a quote in her teen handwriting on the inside cover. "If they don't give you a seat at the table, build your own damn table." She laughed softly. Not bitterly. Just grateful. That little girl had no idea she'd make it. But she did. Later that month, Ren gave her first and only public address since becoming CEO. She stood on the main stage at an international summit on ethics in tech. No teleprompter, no flashy intro music. Just her voice and a room full of silence. "I wasn't born into this industry. I was built by rejection," she began. "My name wasn't on the wall. My family didn't make room for me. So I carved space out of stone." She paused. "They stole my work. But they couldn't steal my worth. Because worth doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. Even when no one else does." The room erupted. Not with polite claps but standing ovation. Not for a woman who took revenge. For a woman who rewrote the rules. Back at Halcyon, Ren now sat on a small bench beside a tree planted in the center of the new garden level. She came here often between meetings, between decisions. Eli walked up beside her. "There's a foundation asking to name a scholarship after you." Ren raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "They want to support underrepresented girls in STEM. They think your story gives hope." Ren thought for a moment, looking at the leaves above. "Tell them to name it after someone else," she said. "Name it after the girls who never got their names remembered. The ones who taught themselves by flashlight. The ones who didn't survive the system." Eli nodded. "You sure?" She smiled faintly. "I don't need my name on it. I just need it to exist." As dusk settled, Ren stood at the glass railing overlooking the city. Everything they once told her she'd never be, she became. Not out of revenge. Out of design. She took the pain, the betrayal, the theft, and turned it into code, into structure, into change. And the best part? She never once became like them. They wore masks. She wore scars. And still stood taller. Ren Holloway didn't just return. She rebuilt. She redefined. And in the story that began with a stolen legacy, it wasn't the thief who got the last word. It was the creator.